with the exception of one property, all of my properties have come back below market price. They've all come back because of the property inspection. I've got them all below what was offered on MLS or Trulia or Zillow because of this process. And sometimes you have to come out of pocket and fork out those things as soon as you purchase it. Like you might have to put $14,000 into the HVAC, into the roof or something like that, but you can get the price reduced as a result of the issues.
Got you. No, cool, man. That sounds like you've been very busy down there in New Orleans.
That was my morning. You know, I've had this laser focus on achieving 10,000 in semi-passive income. And I just closed on the fourplex last week, and I have 3 deals under contract right now. And once all those deals go through, including this one, I'll be at that 10,000 in semi-passive. And I'm really excited about that. That was a goal of mine, and it's literally on the horizon. So I can't wait to do that and share that journey with people through the multifamily movement.
And that's just through real estate, right?
That's just through real estate, right? That's just through real estate, 100%.
Got you. No, that's cool. And Hoodoo Financial, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
What's going on, Troy? That's Troy.
Oh, that's Troy. Okay, it's Troy. Okay.
I
was like, who's Hoodoo Financial? Mr. Troy White is in the building, so it's good to see you. Good to see you. But today we're going to be talking about everything you need to know to achieve financial freedom. And I think this is an important topic for us. One that we've just kind of been discussing as we're laying out the blueprint, laying out the plan for Black financial freedom and how you can make your family, be free, right? And how do you achieve freedom? And what led me to thinking about this was just thinking about all of the different types of assets that are out there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think, which one is better? What assets are better? What assets are worse? And we can get to my conclusion a little bit later on. But Jullien is all in on real estate right now.
Yeah.
I like things that are abstract. That may not have even been considered assets back in the day, but now they, kind of are. Boyce likes one thing; he likes to build an audience, and other people like, just other things as well. So we really just kind of wanted to explore, that, and also, what it takes to achieve financial freedom. So, what do you think about that, Jullien?
Yeah, man. So there's some obvious assets, and I think this is definitely the right question because I learned that the true definition of asset from Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad Poor Dad, where he defines an asset as something that puts money into your pocket every single month, right? So, or consistently. Whereas a lot of people thought that a single family home was an asset, and it is an asset in a general sense, in that it is capital that you can access if you refi or take out a HELOC, et cetera. But a single family home isn't putting money into your pocket every single month. So set aside real estate. A savings account is an asset, right? It's putting money into your pocket every single month. It's just not a lot at 0.03% interest. So how do we build, buy, or borrow other people's assets? That's usually how I think about it. How do I build an asset? How do I buy it? Or how do I borrow it to use it for a purpose? Like, for instance, Uber. For a lot of people, Uber is a borrowed asset. Taxi cab drivers is a borrowed asset. They don't own the medallion. They don't own the cars, but they borrow an asset to then go drive it to make money, and then they pay for that asset. Buying an asset would be, actually, when I'm buying a home, I'm typically borrowing money to buy an asset. So you can actually mix them up. You borrow money from the bank to buy an asset, and then building an asset would be something like the Black Business School or Dr. Watkins building his audience, which is an asset because through that audience, though he doesn't seek to monetize the entire audience, we know that in this online world, you might only 2% of the people who actually ever experience you may actually turn into customers. And then what's beautiful about that is that you get to give freely to the other 98%. But if they really get hungry and want to have a result, then they can start to invest with you. So, So if we define it, that's Robert Kiyosaki's definition. You may not agree, but an asset is something that puts money into your pocket. And if it doesn't, go ahead.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, if you limit the scope. My number one rebuttal to that definition would be a stock. right?
Okay.
So a stock doesn't necessarily put money, like you have to, are you talking about cash flow or are you talking about appreciating in value?
At least net worth increase, and a stock can, but it can also take money out. I mean, almost every asset investment
Well,
can. Yeah. So yeah, a stock would, but I think assets also are on a volatility line, in terms of their risk, right? Because stock, I have no control over whether stock goes up or down. I can in some ways shift cash flow and real estate. Dr. Watkins can get on video and build his audience from day to day to day. So maybe it's not, maybe there's a risk spectrum, but then there's also a control spectrum. You can have an asset, but do you actually have any control over whether it grows or not?
yeah, and I guess you have to determine how important control is for you and your goals,
Mm-hmm.
because if you have multiple assets where you have a job where you kind of control that, I mean, you might get fired, that type of thing. But
Yeah.
for the most part, well, you have a certain level of control. That of course the business owner, the corporation has that control over you as well. So that's why we always preach entrepreneurship. But if you're talking about just passive income, like
Yeah.
if someone were to invest in your real estate deals, let's say you got a group of 20 people or 15 investors, they may only have a certain amount of control over that too. Or someone were to invest in a private equity firm, or just a lot of different types of investments. It definitely does range in control. And if it's producing enough return, maybe it's good that you don't control it in a way, like you control in terms of when you buy and when you sell it, but how you go about making money. Maybe that there are better people out there to control the asset than you. Yeah, we don't like to hear that. I think as entrepreneurs, as people who do like a lot of control in terms of the direction of our family, the direction of our future. But if it's something that's passive, control may not be the best thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, stocks, we know that the average human being does not know what they're doing in terms of stocks. So in some cases, that can be better to be out of your control, but you should at least know who your financial advisor is and who's making those decisions and what their track record has been.
And should you even have an active manager, financial advisor, because that's where the world of stocks has been going is
right.
In index traded funds, ETFs, whatever that stands for, something traded funds, and investing basically in a Vanguard, S&P 500 type of thing.
Yeah.
That reduces risk. But yeah,
is a job an asset? It puts money in your pocket, but for me, I feel like you're building assets for another organization, which then monetizes those assets, whether you're building a product, whether you're refining their systems or services, whether you're helping them build their market share. And then they monetize and they pay you a fraction of that. But is a job, according to that definition, is a job an asset? It's totally active. It's nowhere near passive, right? If we're on a spectrum of passive to active, but it could be active. Is there such thing as an active asset?
Yeah, I think it's an asset. So I guess you have to, explain the difference between, is this an asset or not, and is it a good asset or not, right? Like how good of an asset is it, But I think, having a job definitely is an asset because what you're doing is monetizing the value of your labor. So whether you're talking about your physical labor or you're talking about your knowledge and skill set or something like that. So it's doing something to, monetize, that particular skill. Now, I like what you always say. It's a job, you're basically selling your skills and your labor at wholesale prices.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But nevertheless, you're still selling it, for, you're still having an exchange of value.
Right.
Now,
that's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
and you also remember my definition of this economy that we're in is called the entrepreneur reality, right? And in the entrepreneur reality, we're all already entrepreneurs. An employee is simply an entrepreneur with one big client, right? So you having a client is an asset. Your job, if it is one big client, but having a client is an asset. A client does put money into your pocket, right? So if we look at it from that standpoint, it's just dangerous because you actually have no diversification if that's your only source of revenue.
Right, exactly. And so I think having a job is an asset. So let's just name some of the assets that we think that are out here.
Yeah. Right? So you already said stocks, we already said real estate, we said a job, and these are on different spectrums and they're not in any particular order. Dr. Watkins' audience, the courses in the Black Business School, those are assets. Those are those are solidified intellectual capital. So rather than just thoughts out there in the world, they've been organized in a fashion that can help somebody get to a result. So I think the courses are an asset. You could have, that's intellectual property. Yeah. That's intellectual property, right?
Yeah, that's a piece of intellectual property. So then you have your expertise, your system. So that's what it really is with a job is you have your expertise, you have your labor, but who you're selling it to, like you said, is, basically if you had like, you're a freelancer, you still have that same labor that you were selling to one client, but now you're selling to many clients, whatever.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Most people don't know how to sell because you were making all this money. Let's say you're making $100,000 solving a problem within an organization in the context of a job. That's equivalent to $50 an hour. But then for some reason, when people step out, when they try to step out on their own, they have difficulty commanding that or earning that on their own because they don't know how to sell themselves, even though the corporation was actually only paying them $50,000, but the corporation was actually making $150 per hour off their labor. But because people don't know how to, haven't been branding themselves and don't know how to sell or market, then it's hard for them to actually command their true value in the marketplace.
Yeah, so your brand is an asset, right? So I think your brand is, that's different than your audience.
Brand, audience. I would say a funnel is an asset. A working advertising campaign, I would say, is an asset. I would say your computer is an asset. Actually, it depends on the use, because a car can be an asset or it can be a liability. If you're using your vehicle and you have your business tattooed all over it, and it's actually, you're getting calls because of your phone number being on there, that's actually become an asset because it's an advertising tool now. And even from a accounting perspective, that is deemed as an asset that you can actually write off and depreciate over time. So anything that is attracting customers to you is an asset. We have trademarks, we have patents, we have copyrights, we have licenses. So you may have a license to sell something in a particular territory, similar to the taxi medallions. Those are assets, right? There are a limited number of them, and they're worth gold in New York, right? So that kind of thing where you have the rights to something that you may have to figure out how to sell back to the market, but you have the rights to something that is an asset.
So that's a political asset, I guess, in a way, or I say political in terms of using the definition of political being, how you go about divvying up resources,
Yep, 100%. Your network, beyond just your audience, your network.
Relationship, with your network. That's what I was thinking.
So my access to capital, because I've built relationships with this bank or this financial person or this investor, that's actually an asset because it makes it easier for me to go create something in the world that I desire to create and that generates money. So your social capital is definitely an asset. If you can call up such and such, and they can make one video for you or something like that, then that's an asset, right? That relationship is an asset.
Your data. Yeah.
Your data that you have about people or your own personal data.
They're both assets. It says who has access to that asset, right?
Facebook has a rich, so that's probably Facebook's number one asset in the entire, when you really look at their business, it's probably their data that they have about their user behaviors, because every site in the world has been Facebook pixeled. So they know what sites you've been to, and therefore they can actually deliver advertising for those businesses a lot more effectively because they pixeled the internet with their code.
Yeah, and that's Google's asset too. I mean, they have this big search engine, that and much more than that, of course, now. But that's how they got started, was just building this massive database, this massive search engine.
Yep. And from an accounting perspective, Goodwill, and I think Goodwill is the same as brand so Goodwill is just how people perceive you. So I think Goodwill is a company's way of saying brand, or the accounting way of saying brand, right? If you just have Goodwill in the marketplace and people trust you, people trust you. I think trust is an asset. We're getting to more intangible assets now, but I think trust is definitely an asset.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to brand too, right?
Yeah.
So that's a part of your brand asset as well. But yeah, you definitely trust is an asset.
Yeah.
So there's so many just different assets that are out here.
Yeah.
What about physical? So you got gold.
Oh yeah, you got gold. You got straight up land.
Land. Mm-hmm.
You got chickens, you got goats. Like those are assets. They produce
Food.
they reproduce food. Yeah, they produce food. Monsanto, they own seeds. They literally own seeds. Like, how do you own a seed?
So here's that thing. That's both an asset, or that's both a physical and intangible asset.
Yes, it is.
Right, right. It is scary, isn't it? I mean, Monsanto is basically like a pharmaceutical company in a way.
100%, man.
Right. Where a pharmaceutical company, they have their drug, that they sell, but what they're really selling is their intellectual property in terms of what it took to, create that drug as well.
I would say, and I hate to get vain, but I would say beauty and booty are assets. In today's marketplace, like Kim Kardashian would not be. Kim Kardashian would not be who she is, or wouldn't have gotten to where she is if she wasn't perceived as good looking to a large population, and if she hadn't inflated her backside. And a lot of people who are winning on Instagram have inflated their body parts, and because those things perhaps attract attention, which is audience, they've been able to monetize those things.
Yeah, attention, I guess, too, attention. Right? Yeah,
so is attention and audience the same thing?
I think
audience is more loyal.
Well, not even that. I wouldn't even say that. I think attention is a piece of audience in a way, right? Because I'm thinking about, let's say, like a news channel or something. Yeah. Right? I might be a part of their audience. I get their messages. I like to listen to them, but they may not have my attention the whole day or something. Or like some people capture your attention, or some things and people capture your attention more than others.
I would switch it. So Super Bowl gets a lot of attention. And then within that whole large spectrum of attention, I would say a fraction of those people are actually NFL audience, part of the NFL audience. So attention is the thing that you can get like for 30 seconds, and somebody might be able to do something like Logan Paul on YouTube. He knows how to get attention through his crazy videos, but whether you actually are an audience member and like say I'm looking out for stuff from him, or I'm actually checking the NFL every Sunday, I think that makes you an audience member.
Yeah, I can see that, but I see it a little bit different. I see it as attention. Basically, the reason why like these Silicon Valley companies care about time spent on your site or on their site is attention, right? Gotcha. So like the longer I'm spending scrolling Facebook, that's why I had to turn my phone off for most of the day, right? Yeah. But the longer I'm spending scrolling Facebook, the longer they have my attention to deliver me more ads.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that goes for YouTube, or goes for any type of just conversation that you're having with someone, back and forth. So, I can have a large audience. We struggle with this sometimes. Yeah, we struggle with this sometimes. We might have a site that has a lot of subscribers that's technically our audience.
Yeah.
But making sure that they are engaged and having that attention.
Yes. Yeah. That's. I think that's right. I think actually you're right. So I think Lil Wayne said it. I didn't pay attention, but now attention pays me, or something like that.
That's what he said. He's right.
Yeah, man. Attention does pay. Now, here's the thing. For those of you out there who are trying to get more attention online, it does not mean attention just from the mass public, like a Super Bowl commercial. Literally, you just need to get attention from your ideal client. You need to get attention from the person who actually desires to pay you or wants what you actually have to offer. You don't have to have 1 million followers in order to make this thing work on the internet. Whether you're selling a hair wrap or you are trying to sell financial services like Troy, you just have to attract the attention of those who can benefit from what you have to offer.
Yep. So, and for the people who are just tuning in, we're talking today about just the types of assets and everything that you need to know to achieve financial freedom. So please go ahead and give us a thumbs up. That'll help out a lot for the YouTube algorithm, and go ahead and share this video, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube page as well if you want to receive more conversations like this in the future.
The Black Financial Channel. That's what we're on.
That's right. Yeah, we're on the Black Financial Channel right now. So we thank you guys for joining us. But E-commerce store, an e-commerce store is an asset too.
Yep. Your knowledge of this is intellectual capital. So there's skill mastery, which is your ability to do something and repeat success more frequently than the average person. So Steph Curry, he can make 3-pointers more consistently than you and I can, right? And he can do it at a very high level. He can probably do it better than anybody in the world. So that's skill mastery, but then there's subject mastery. So when you look at people who are on TED, a lot of the people who are on the main TED stage, not TEDx, they have some subject mastery. And in most cases, that subject mastery allows them to monetize, whether it's channeling that through a book, whether that's channeling that through speaking. So I guess that goes back to expertise. But the language that I use is your personal capital, your intellectual capital, your social capital, and your financial capital.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I like that delineation between, and this is what we teach in Great Pro Speakers, between skills and your expertise, right?
Yeah.
So because someone could be on stage, speaking about, my favorite video as of late is one about sloths. So like slothing around, like sloths.
Okay.
So I know sloths have like such a bad reputation, but they're like one of my favorite animals because I don't know why. I mean, I guess I'm just laid back like that. I don't know. I like to sloth around sometimes.
Lions are laid back. They sleep like a majority of the day.
Yeah, but sloths just hang in a tree, high up in the air, just conserve energy. They can eat something and it'll, be good for 2 weeks. And just living life. Something about that I like. But anyway, there was a TED video talking about sloths. So her expertise comes from how much she knows about sloths, but her skill set comes in terms of how she's communicating with the audience with energy and passion and having a clear narrative. Like that's a skill that she could actually, do not just talking about sloths, but she can do talking about a lot of different types of things as well.
Ooh, so that takes me to a story. A good story that you either fictional or that's actually your story is an asset. I mean, this is what gets you on Oprah. This is what gets a movie script written about your life and things of that nature, whether you're going to Finding Forrester or The Pursuit of Happiness, etc. Those movies were based on somebody's story, their life experience communicated via story. And until this moment, I never considered story necessarily an asset, but if you have a life experience that is transformative and inspirational, that is actually an asset that works in your favor.
Well, actually, it doesn't even have to just be your story. And Troy, I see your question. I want to get to that in 1 second here. Not even just your story. I mean, Hollywood, that's Hollywood, right? Yeah, I mean, Hollywood is based on not just your story, but, Harry Potter, you built an entire world, or Game of Thrones, you're building an entire world with all these different stories and characters and that type of thing.
But a story that people have either strikes a chord with people or that people find themselves in, right? 50 Shades of Grey, that was a story, and Soccer Moms jumped in on it because it was fulfilling this fantasy for them, So it can't just be a story. It has to be a story that I think people either find themselves in, they relate to the character, or it strikes a chord with them in some way.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And so Troy asked, let's see here, what's your opinion on the need for African American online businesses as an asset?
I think that network is an asset. I would say no, forget it. I'm not going to continue using Jews as a reference point. But for me, my reference actually of late has been the Asian community. Like the Asian community, they know that they are a quote unquote minority. They'll never be a majority here, and they don't fight for political power. They just go straight after economic and educational power. And so the network that they create with Koreatown, Chinatown, et cetera, that's a communal asset. I don't think any one individual owns that. But I did know this, Irvine, California. I just found out that is actually a private corporation.
Yeah, there are some cities that are private corporations, especially if they have a wall built around them, right? Maybe we watched the same real estate video. I'm not sure.
I learned this from my little brother who does real estate there, and and sometimes when you're going into a city limits, it'll say something corp limits. You're like, corp, like, what do you mean? This is a city. Nope. People, an organization, an entity owns this, and it looks like it's a public space, but it's actually a private owned. So when we're talking about Black businesses coming together, I heard Jay-Z and Diddy are doing an app that would unite or make it easier. We Buy Black is formulating an asset through Black products in the same way that Amazon has done for products at large. So the networks is an expansion of social capital. When I initially mentioned social capital is me to one person or me to an entity. But a network is definitely an asset. A network, interconnected network is definitely an asset. But only in some cases does like one individual or one entity actually own a network, or actually the Black Realtors organization. That's an asset, right?
Yeah. So these assets commit or associations, that you are part of, that you own as well. So how are you relating that back to online businesses being an asset or not?
If we're interconnected, that's where it becomes, there's synergies, right? And greater value is created than individual entities. Now, a lot of Black businesses are out there. They think they're assets, but they're actually not, right? They exist, but if you try to sell, here's how you know if your company's an asset. If you were to go to sell it online or sell it, how much would somebody buy it for? Mm-hmm. And most Black companies, because they're sole proprietorships, they wouldn't sell for anything. So this person is, while I'm happy that they're entrepreneur, they're kind of stuck in this sole proprietorship because nobody would buy your company because your company is solely dependent on you. There's no systems in place. There's no product. There's no branding. Your client list may be of value to somebody, right? Like if I wanted to own the lawn mowing space here in New Orleans, and I was like, can I buy your client list and I'll pay you this for you to retire and you can't compete in this area anymore? That's an asset. But that for most Black businesses, because so many are sole proprietorships, their client list may actually be the only asset that they really have, though they've been doing the work for a long time. And this is not to put our businesses down, but there is opportunity for us to evolve.
Yeah. So it's still an asset in my opinion. It's just one with immense depreciating value. If you did not want to do that anymore, or if you want to transfer that wealth, in some other form or fashion. So it's similar to having a job, right? I mean, that's the big downside of a job, where a job is you do have an asset in terms of your labor and your skills that someone's willing to pay you for, but is depreciation.
Right. So given that, is a college degree an asset?
Yeah, it's an asset, but it's an asset, but it's an asset that you may have overpaid for. That's what I'm saying, right? I think my degrees are an asset. It's helped me in get indoors and build a network and relationship. Yeah. But was it worth, what I paid for it? That's the question. So it's still an asset, but was it worth it?
So because I feel like when you see the world through a certain lens, I feel like almost anything can become an asset. There's people who use their computer just for entertainment. It's not an asset in that moment, right? But if you're using it to build your business, then it could be an asset. So there's people who are not using their degrees, so it's actually not valuable and it's not actually an asset for them. And there's people who were taking the relationships that they built there, what they learned, and they're actually applying it to earn income today, and it's an asset for them. So I feel like almost everything can have a flip side depending on how you're actually utilizing it.
Yeah, utilization. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is how are you utilizing your asset? Because like I could have had a arts degree or something like that and started great Black speakers and worked in the Black business school, where that arts degree would not have, come into play. But the only asset that it has is brand association and brand value. Right. Mm-hmm. So you being associated with, with Stanford and UCLA and like that type of thing, that is an asset in terms of, giving you instant credibility with, folk like, hey, this dude's smart. Right. Yeah. Even though, like that's an asset. Right. But you could have had a degree, not in business, but just had a degree from Harvard. Yeah, any degree.
Right.
Yeah, it's still an asset, but now was that asset worth it in terms of how you're utilizing it? So you might utilize it from the brand perspective, but then you may not utilize it from your skills and expertise.
Money is the same thing. Money is no good if it's not used, right? You might have 500,000 stacked in the account, but if it's not being used, then it has no utilization except for earning 0.03%. Then it's not an asset in that moment. I think it has the potential to be a great asset for you, and it does ease your fears of economic downturn. And it might cure you of some worry because you got this stash in the bank account. But at that moment, it's actually not earning anything until it's out in the world working for you.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I agree with that, but then with a caveat, like what you said in regards to it providing a psychological benefit, right? Which is an asset. So your mental, actually that's an asset too. Your mental outlook, towards the world, your mental health, your health in general. How do you produce energy? How do you move around the world? Are you happy? From that particular perspective, those are assets too.
That's so important, man. Health is wealth. Because Steve Jobs, of course, he got cancer, and I don't think he did anything to inflict that based on his lifestyle. But health is wealth. Pusha T said, "Ask Steve Jobs, wealth don't buy health." With exception of Magic Johnson, I always got to throw in that exception to the rule. And you could lose your house, you could lose your money, you could lose all that and potentially get it back. But your health, if you lose that, then almost reacquiring any of that other stuff absolutely becomes impossible. And I think we undervalue our mental and physical health.
I think it's the most important asset. I think it's the number one. Yeah, the number one most important asset is your health.
We don't treat it like that.
We don't treat it like that. I was just about to say that because I'm always over here thinking about this burger and I'm gonna order or whatever.
Somebody said if you were to sell all your body parts on the black market, it'd be worth $6 million or something like that.
Really? But that's interesting. But even as a billionaire, there is no doubt in my mind, if you were to go I don't know, what would Steve Jobs say, I will give you another 30 years if you gave me $5 billion of your wealth. Do you think he would say yes? 30 extra years of life.
So you're saying time?
Yeah, you can be in good health. You could be dying, you knew you're going to die tomorrow. Steve Jobs was on his deathbed, knew he was going to die tomorrow. And somebody came, all right, for $5 billion, you can live 30 extra years.
Oh, he would take it.
He would take it. Yeah. You can live for all your wealth except $100,000.
I think he would take it. But yeah, I think he would take it.
I think so too. And I think he would take it in particular too, because he knows he can make not that much back, but he can still live because of his knowledge and what he brings to the table.
Oh yeah, he has brand cachet. He has brand cachet, and he could go create. He might not be able to grow it to that time because we know the time horizon of money and compounding interest and things of that nature. But because of who he is and his personal brand that he created and leaving a dent in the universe, he would easily be able to step into something that is monetizable really quickly.
Let's say he wasn't famous. Let's say it's just some random ass dude who inherited a lot of money or something like that. Inherited $50 million.
Well, my homie had to pull the plug on his mom a few months ago, and he said it was the hardest decision he ever had to make. And I think there does come a point where you're like, is this more valuable in keeping this person alive but struggling, or to just pass any wealth transfer on to the next generation? So if I was I believe my daughter is going to make more use of this than me staying here for another 5 years, then I might say, you know what? I love y'all, deuces. Take this and go multiply. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. But that's if you're saying that you would live another 5 years in a poor state, because we had that same problem with my grandmother too. So if another 5 years.
What are we saying? Time? Because health, unfortunately, health doesn't always directly correlate to more time on Earth. So are we saying that time is an asset. So we're saying that the body, mental and physical health is an asset, and that time is an asset, but health doesn't always directly correlate to more time.
Right, because you have some people who are just unhealthy, who had 4 triple bypass heart surgeries or something, who are just struggling. You know what I mean? Just a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I saw this story of this veteran. He eats a little thing of ice cream and drinks cognac every day, and he's the oldest living veteran in the United States.
Genetics,
100% facts.
Genetics, then is the asset in terms of your genes or just you bring from the table. I don't know.
Being black is an asset.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I don't know, man. So I think health is number one asset, but then I think your second biggest asset is your labor or your skill set, your knowledge, and your expertise, even over money. Or I think it's the most resilient asset. Like, and what I mean by resilient is if you know how to make money or if you know how to do something really well that the world desires, you could lose all your money and still, or almost all your money, because there's probably a point, right? And still kind of make it back up to the top as long as you have opportunity. That's another asset, opportunity, right? So opportunity is an asset in terms of maybe where you live, your location.
The younger George Bush, I don't know what his skill set was, but if he lost all his money, he'd be fine.
That's true.
He didn't necessarily have a skill set. So your network, which is your access to opportunity, could actually be more important than your actual skill set.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah,
you're right. This is where nepotism comes in, and I'm trying to see where nepotism has actually played a role in our community. I mean, this is not to hate on. I actually like Solange's music, but would Solange, without being Beyonce's sister, would Solange be an artist today? Even have the stature that she has today, right? Is that a form of nepotism? And good that's us using nepotism.
I mean, we're all in favor of nepotism, or else we wouldn't be talking so much about intergenerational transfer of wealth in a way.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying I'm just trying to find examples of where we've actually.
Yeah, me. I am an example in a way, right?
Yeah,
so yeah. So like, I didn't have to go build an audience. I just talk to boys and be like, let's hop on this channel real quick and talk to people about financial empowerment. Yeah. He's the one who put the money in to actually build the audience.
But if you didn't go to Cornell, I know boys value education, but as his brother, if you didn't go to Cornell, you've hired family members all throughout the company, and sometimes the family members were absolutely exceptional. Sometimes they were not the best candidate, but they were family, right? And so the Watkins last name, even if that person fell flat on their face and was trying to get back up, you might have hired them over somebody who had a greater skill sets. And so that access to network and opportunity can be more valuable than the skill sets in some cases.
You know what? I think that you're right. If we look at it in a microcosm. Yeah. So there we go. Yeah. If we look at a microcosm, if we look at it in terms of me being able to pitch my expertise and skills to multiple people, not just one client or one entity, then it might yield different results. But your example about George Bush is making me rethink this. So I think your network and your relationships, your network might be the second most important.
So we got health, mental and physical health and well-being. Then we have network. Then we have your labor or your skill and your ability to create value. Then if you can create value, I think it's your ability to actually personal brand and market to actually find people, whether that's a job or clients, that you can actually sell that value to. Because you could have extreme value, but if nobody knows that you have that value, then you aren't actually able to monetize it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think that you're right. What I'm trying to determine in my brain is that related to your network and the relationships that you had from that
very much so. Very much so. So for me, financial capital happens at the intersection of your social and intellectual capital when they overlap. When there are people who know your social capital, know that you know something, which is your intellectual capital, when that overlaps, that increases your likelihood of yielding financial capital from that interaction. And it's the same with applying for a job. If there's people who know you inside that organization, and they know that have a skill set that's valuable to them, you're going to be more likely to get the job than if you just throw your resume in there. Even though you have this intellectual capital, you just throw your resume into this dark hole and hope that you get the job on the back end.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. At some point, though, we need to talk about money. Like, where does money come into play in terms of, like, most valuable assets?
I think it goes back to that psychological. It's almost a mental health thing. If we look at even Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a mental health thing. And I think this is why the research around 75,000 being what you need, and after that, it's all like marginal benefit. I think there's a baseline. And this is why I've been so committed to helping people get to rent freedom, right? Where they no longer have a housing expense, because if that baseline is met, actually, I don't know how much money has to do with it. If a lot of people are literally commuting hours to a computer to pay for the house that is empty for 12 to 16 hours of the day. Like, that's sick.
The house and daycare. But it was just,
it is sick. It is sick. And so, I think so that baseline now, I forgot the language that I don't know if it was rent stress or something like that. We as Black people in this country, rent is taking up over 50% of our actual revenue or intake, right? People call it income, but I call it revenue. And that's where you are rent strained or something like that. I forgot what the language is. Whereas that number should be more around 25% to 30 to a quarter to 1/3. And when you have that kind of breathing room, I think it frees you up to be more of who you truly are and live more of the life that you truly desire. But when rent is taking up half of what you're bringing in, man, you have no breathing room left at the end of the day, man.
No, that's true. That's true. And, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that in terms of the marginal benefit and marginal return of like money towards your happiness. What up, EJ? What up, Prince? I'm glad you're, watching. Yes, I am Boyce's brother. EJ, we're trying to get to your question in terms of, who you are and what you have here in a second. But we do not give financial advice. We just always need to put that.
We're not financial advisors, and you're not a client yet.
Yep. But back to that, the marginal benefit, the geometry of wealth. That's my new favorite book about finances. And they talk about that in terms of money is not really a thing that produces happiness, but it's something that alleviates pain.
Facts.
Right? Yeah. So you can have less pain in your life because you have a certain amount of money, and it probably can produce a certain level of happiness. But you can have a certain level of happiness, but it's not going to be the thing that gets you over the top to make you one of the happiest people, on earth.
Yeah. And for me, that's joy. For me, that's joy. I think happiness is based on what happens to you, and joy is something that's derived from within. And so money, it might reach you a certain level of happiness, but I think what we're really aspiring for, that's been, most people use the language of happiness. I think what we're really aspiring for is joy. And joy is above happiness and more the target and my goal. I'm trying to optimize for joy, not necessarily happiness, because happiness can be fleeting. If it's based on what happens to you, I got a raise, I got fired, this and that, happiness can be fleeting. But joy is, if it's within and it's derived from within, is permanent regardless of external circumstances.
Yeah, I like that. I've always used the term fulfillment, but I think I like joy better. Yeah, so happiness and there's joy, as well. Yeah. And but here's the point, though. It goes back to psychology. Daniel Kahneman, he's one of the foremost behavioral scientists on the planet. He wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, amongst other things as well. But he won the Nobel Prize for this concept called prospect theory. And it's very simple. All prospect theory is saying is that we value losses more than we value gains by a 2-to-1 margin. So from like a happiness perspective or like a happy perspective, the loss of the loss of $1 is equal to $2. Is equal to you gaining $2, more or less.
Right.
Yeah. So alleviating that pain, like if you look at it from that perspective, is probably the very first step, in terms of happiness, right? Because there's so many things that can cause us pain, that money can really easily solve, working out those types of things first well, not first, but simultaneously while you're looking to do the other things. But I think people overcommit to money at the expense of other things that might make them happy once they reach a certain level of pain alleviation.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, there has to be a switch. And for me, that switch, once you get past the pain alleviation and the scarcity, is actually identifying what's enough. Because a lot of people say, I want to be rich. But I think if you play that game, being rich is a never ending game, and you'll always be pursuing more and more and more and more. Your peer group will start to change. Oh, I'm making 6 figures now, right? Now my peer group is making 250. Now I feel inadequate. It's like going from the NCAA to the NBA, right? You were top pick in the NCAA, but then when you got to the NBA, you were the bottom of the totem pole, right? And so that continues to happen. And I think everybody needs to get clear on what's enough for them. There's some people who are trying to be billionaires, and there's some people who would be happy with a cool million. There's some people who actually don't need any of that, and they just need a little emergency fund and to know that they got cash flow to cover them, that everything's going to be okay as they move to retirement. And if you're comparing yourself to other people, you're always going to feel behind.
Yep. And I mean, that's a form of wealth, right? Is, where is your point of enough? Like the lower that point is, the wealthier you are. And, that reminds me of a conversation I was having. I always say, well, he's definitely my most successful friend financially, like my close friend, whatever. Yeah. But my friend, I won't say his name, but Indian guy recently sold his company for a whole lot of money, like that he was a part of, right? I mean, one of those things that you will see on television type of cash, right?
Yeah.
And he still lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in New York. Like he could have bought anything he wanted to buy. He could be on the private jets. He could be, doing all these different types of things. And he's still living in his 1-bedroom apartment in New York and walks everywhere, because, he was content beforehand. It's just money. Yeah. It's just something that he now has. But, there's only so many things that you can buy with money.
There's only so many things. I reached that point in my life where I couldn't tell my wife what I wanted for my birthday or for Christmas, because I got to a point where I didn't have any needs. I didn't have any needs or wants. If I wanted something or needed something, and I don't have big needs. I'm not like, go buy me a car or nothing like that, right? But there was just literally, I got to a point where there was nothing that I wanted, right? And it's a beautiful place to be. It's also an interesting place to be, because then you have to get clear on what's actually going to drive me forward. If I've been driven by want up until this point, and now I actually don't need anything, what's going to be my new desire? And that's where I think I got more generous and more giving of my intellectual capital, of my financial capital. I think I got more giving at that point where I actually had no need, because my cup was running over.
That's interesting. That's something I struggle with and I think about too, actually. And by the way, guys, we're here with Lawrence Watkins, me, and Jullien Gordon, and we're talking really about a whole bunch of different things: what it means to be happy, what it means to be wealthy, what are the different forms of assets. We talked about a lot today, but if you like this conversation, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button. We would really appreciate that. Google's algorithm on YouTube will really appreciate it too.
Yeah, and we started off with assets because, I think what we've come to is that we're trying to optimize for joy, but I think there is an assumption, and you and I have to challenge this assumption: is having more assets actually helping us get to more joy?
No, you don't have to challenge me with that assumption, right? That for me, like going back to what you were just talking about in terms of what is that next thing is going to drive you. Yeah. But that's the assumption that I'm going to question is, why do you need a next thing if you're content to drive you to do something to do something else?
You sloth. I mean, the retired businessman story moved me and you, and the fact that it was a businessman story and we were both in business school and we got exposed to it. I think that says a lot about your and my drive, and why it's not just money maximization and it's actually more joy maximization.
I'm thinking about, have you seen the new Avengers movie yet?
Nah.
Oh, never mind. Okay. Well, anyway.
The audience may have seen it.
Oh, yeah. So if you ain't seen it by now, there ain't no spoilers. It's been out for months now.
You're right.
Yeah, there was a scene where after the first movie of the 2-part movie, Thanos completed his task in terms of wiping out half of the universe, right? But then like the opening scene, or basically the opening minutes of the next movie, you just see him retired and all beat up and retired from, his previous, accomplishment, I guess.
Yeah.
And he was just living a very peaceful life at that point. So, he didn't have a next thing, to motivate him in that particular instance. He did his, what he came here to do.
That's interesting. That's interesting. That's really interesting. And guess what? And I think to each his own. I think we've been baked in with this paradigm of the more is merrier, and that stillness is deemed as laziness, or that you can always do more. And I'm glad that the way you're moving through your life is challenging that paradigm, because if and I'm almost at that. I'm actually at that point where I could literally stop working. But I'm Jamaican, so we got 5 jobs, man. My dad is essentially retired, but yet he still works 3 days a week, and he still runs this nonprofit and does that. Like, he can't stop. It's like baked into his DNA. But yeah, if somebody just stopped, they did what they did and they stopped. What's wrong with that?
What is wrong with that, right? And I'm actually not built like Boyce, to be quite honest, right? Mm-hmm. Or built like, Elon Musk. I've always taken the position that we are just minuscule creatures in this vast universe, right? Like, I have 2 different thoughts in my brain, right? Like, we're just minuscule creatures in this vast universe that we cannot even comprehend. Like, if I stop working, 1,000 years from now, nobody's gonna give a shit. Like, to be honest, right? Like,
you trying to Gilbert Arenas the universe? You trying to Gilbert Arenas the universe, or Noah Joakim Noah the universe? But I'm chilling, y'all.
Yeah, like, that's one side of me. But then the other side is the here and now. It's like, these are the things I really do care about.
Yeah,
and this is a goal, for me to help. Help and add value to the things that I actually care about. And I think it really comes back to how you're actually built as a person. Another example from media that, really stuck with me is, one of the most recent episodes of Billions, the Showtime TV show. As you guys can see, I watch, a lot of TV, unfortunately. But, Billions, you had Axe, Axe Capital. I forgot his first name, but, his name's Axe, right? So he's this billionaire hedge fund dude. And he has this friend who owns his pizza shop that Axe has invested in. And his friend said, "Hey, man, I have good news." He's old. He's like 70, right? 70 something, right? "I have good news, man. There's this company that wants to buy this pizza shop." And, I get to, from there, I get to, go. I'm thinking about retiring in Florida, right? And Axe said, "No, don't do that. Why don't you stay another 5 years, get some things worked out, and, then you can go, lay back and retire," right?
Yeah.
And then the other guy said, "Yeah, Axe, you're right, and, his girlfriend, Axe's girlfriend, was there at the time, and he, she called him out that night. Axe was like, "Can you believe him, trying to retire? Like, well, I don't want him just sitting on the beach all day doing nothing. What's going to motivate him to succeed?"
Yeah.
And then his girlfriend, who is very successful too, Rebecca Cantu in the show, she states, like, what if that's not what he wants? What if he, think about, like, put yourself in his shoes. You were slaving over this oven for 30 years. And, now you just want some time to, spend with the grandkids and fish by the lake. For you, that might seem like hell, but for him, that might be paradise, So Axe had to really go back and, really think about that. And I think that that's where empathy is why empathy is so important, because that's something I struggle with too. I struggle with empathy to a certain degree. But, being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes and knowing what they actually want to be successful and to be happy and to be fulfilled in life. So that's why I think, like, the first question that needs to be answered before we even talk about all this different wealth stuff and everything like that is, like, what do you want? What do you want out of your life?
Period. 100%. I'm in perfect alignment, and it really comes to knowledge of self, right? I'll be honest with you. So 2 of my stories that have led to this paradigm and this target of me achieving financial freedom and this degree of semi-passive income from real estate. One, my best friend, he lost his dad 3 months after his dad retired from the Oakland firefighter department. Like, just gone, just like that. and his dad was a saver and whatnot, and didn't really enjoy life as much on the front end or during it, kind of hoping and waiting for this back end, right? And so in high school, that was a paradigm event or a moment for me that has kind of shaped my life. Because in all honesty, the amount of what I've invested into real estate, I could have tried to double down on my tech company or this and that and this and that, and tried to just go in a different direction and try to be like your Indian friend who just sold his company, et cetera. I could have done that, but for some reason my life went in a different direction. I also had when I was at UCLA, I had two young people who were in my outreach program. They died, one of sickle cell and one got shot. And then when I was younger, I lost a best friend to a car accident. And so when I saw, and then of course, at the age of 18, I was held up at gunpoint for my car. So these moments showing how vulnerable life is and how fragile life is, I think they changed my, what do they call it? Modus operandum, your MO. They changed mine a little bit. Like, it's not about who stacks up the most amount of paper. And for me, it was like who lived. I think it changed mine to who's most purposeful and who is actually enjoying life here and now, because we're not promised tomorrow. So I think that's shaped my path in comparison to, let me say, in general, my business school classmates who might be all money maximization. And I think some of them are still on that path, and some of them have gone down that path and realized that's actually not who they are. And they're trying to dovetail into a different way of being and earning now. Because, I say it all the time, it's not how much money you make, it's how you make money. And I think that's how you make money is more key than how much money you make.
Yeah, man. Love it. Love it.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Yeah, man. We covered a lot today.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Did you guys enjoy the conversation that we were having today? About everything, really, about assets, about goals. I think the big takeaway that
man.
Yeah, you got to know what you want. I think that's the number one takeaway, and I think it's worth repeating over and over again. You have to know what you want, and can't let the world tell you what you want out of your life, and then operate based on what they think you should be doing with your life.
Right. And then once you establish what you want, you gotta let the comparisons go, because comparison is the number one killer of happiness. So you say, I want to optimize for joy, but you're still comparing yourself to somebody who's making $200,000 a year, and you're not. It's gonna create cognitive dissonance for you. You have to get comfortable with who you are and what you want, and sit in that and be joyful in that, and let somebody else go down their path. Hopefully that is their path. Because what if they're chasing that path and you're admiring them, but that's not even what they really want. So yeah, man, this is great. So yeah, as we create the curriculum and as we write the book, etc., I think that's where we actually have to start off is, what do you want? Not influenced by parents, not influenced by society, not influenced by your spouse. Literally, what do you want? Here's the problem. Most people don't know what they want. I think people have perceptions of what they want, but they actually don't know, right? You can say, oh, I want, you can say, I want this, but if you never had it, you actually don't really know if you actually want it, right? And then like some people, especially high up in corporate, they say, oh, I actually don't want the CEO job because I see what that CEO is doing. But there's other people who are down below them like, oh, I want to be CEO, but they actually don't know everything that comes with it. The other way you actually know what you want is if you've tasted it, but you're not getting it as frequently as you desire. So you know you want it. This tastes good to me. I enjoyed this experience. I enjoyed this food. I enjoyed this trip, etc. I'm just not getting it at the frequency that I desire to get it. And I think you have to taste something. Why are you laughing?
No, sorry. I think you're right. I was laughing at my dad, when he was retiring, or, my dad was a very type A, or he is when I was, but he's still living. He's working, very type A individual, police officer. And he was the fastest person ever in the local police department of Louisville, Kentucky, to make it to the rank of major. Right. So that's where you're like a executive officer type of thing. And he was the fastest ever to do that. But he really stayed at major for his entire career, because I was like, Dad, why didn't you want to be chief? Or why didn't you go for that? Because he could have if he wanted to, but he really hated politics for it. So at major, he was at that sweet spot where he had enough power to do what he wanted. So, you know, he could, you know, towards the end days, he would be on the golf course, you know, just with himself. They'll play golf or prop on rides. He would go back, you know, delegating to his lieutenants. So he was high enough to be able to do that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And still low enough where he didn't have to deal with the politics and the mayor as much. Right.
Yep.
So, you know, that was his perfect level, was to be the major, you know, not the, you know, not the chief or nothing like that, but to be, you know, in that particular position. So
100%, man. This is great insight, and I think all of our curriculums have to start there. Of course, people actually they think it's all about the money, so we gotta sell them we gotta sell them the cheese, but give them the broccoli, because people don't know that that's actually where it actually all has to start. You have to get clear on what you want, otherwise we are just you're actually jumping in the rat race, and it's actually going to be an accelerated rat race, and you're going to feel further and further behind because you're going to be comparing yourself to people who've had head starts over you in many ways.
And that's what we have to start too, is when we're thinking about the Black Family Financial Plan. Is what are the key things that people usually want? You know, like, you know, what are the key things that, you know, people in our community usually want? You know,
we have the freedom surveys, and we know that freedom for Black people is actually different than freedom for the general American public, how Black people truly define it. I think we want to not work or not have to work because we worked for free for so long. And whether we didn't actually do it, I think we know that our ancestors did. And I think that's why not working so much is part of our definition of freedom. Whereas other people, they have different cultural definitions of what success looks like, and we just have to be happy with ours. And I think if we actually get comfortable and accept ours as what it is, we can get there a lot faster.
Yep. Cool, guys. Well, I think that's enough for the day, Jullien. I think
we went in, man.
Yeah, we went in a little bit. So if you guys enjoyed this topic and this conversation, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up button. We would really appreciate it. Sorry we couldn't get to everyone's questions today. But hopefully, you know, you guys join us again where we may be able to, you know, get to more questions from the audience and that type of thing. So, you got anything else, Jullien?
No, man. We will be back next week. We usually come on at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays. So check out, look for the red live button or marker on YouTube.
Yeah, and please make sure before you get out of here, press the thumbs up button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And go ahead and share and subscribe to this video as well. So on behalf of Jullien Gordon, I'm Lawrence Watkins. You guys take care, be blessed, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Peace.